Alright, Shalom Aleichem Rabotai. Beruchim Abaim to our Wednesday class on Yalkut Yosef, Hilchot Shabbat, and we are digging into the topic of Muktzeh, a different type of Muktzeh. One of the types of Muktzeh that we recently touched is called Muktzeh Mechamat Gufo. Baruch haba Giacomo. Muktzeh Mechamat Gufo, an example that we gave is like a rock or sand, things that they're not considered a vessel, a kli, and they're also not food. That's muktzeh mechamat gufo. Therefore, the restrictions on them are heavier than usual muktzeh. The simple muktzeh, which is called kli shemelachto leisu, we give the example of a driller. Those muktzeh, if it's in your seat, you could move it. Or if you actually need it, for example, in a way that is allowed, like taking a hammer to knock some nuts on Shabbat, or taking scissors to cut open a milk bag, that would be allowed. Why? Because you're using either it for itself or for the spot that it is if it was on your seat. Those are lighter muktzes, but the muktzeh that is muktzeh mechamat gufo, which means like a rock, like sand, those things that aren't even considered a kli, a vessel, they're items that you have no use in, those will be on harder restriction and you cannot move them for those causes. Why am I giving this introduction? I want you to remember the topic, muktzeh mechamat gufo. Now I'm going to give you a question that happened to me personally. Going to Shabbat, Bet Knesset, wearing a suit. Apparently, one of the buttons was a little loose, and the button fell off the suit. Now, the button matches the buttons of the suit. You're going to leave the button on the floor, but I don't know. It's like a kli that's broken. Is it detached? Can I use it? Can I pick it up? Is it muktzeh? How do I treat this thing right now? Anybody wanna guess? Maybe wants to give an answer, a logical answer.
I don't see why you can't pick it up.
Chazaku Baruch. Simon goes with the basic logic,
Yeah.
and of course, we're going to find a way to say that what Simon's saying is true, because in almost every case that we're going to bring, it is true. What do I mean? If this button was functional before Shabbat, which means like this button or this button, these are functional buttons. They were a kli before Shabbat came in, then they were usable. Now that the kli got broken, it's okay. The shivre kelim, what was broken off from the kli, from the item, from the clothing item, or from the vessel, whatever it is not considered muktzeh because it wasn't before Shabbat. So why am I asking this question? That seems like a simple answer. The answer is that sometimes on our suits or on our shirts, there are buttons that have no use. They're just there in case you ever lose a button. So they sew the button into the fabric either inside of the suit or in the pocket of the suit or in the inner lining of the suit, just so that if you ever lose a button, you could chop this one off and then sew it where you need. But it doesn't have any function as of now. So the question is, and this is just one example, but it's an indicator to how we treat muktzeh and chamat gufo. What type of muktzeh is this? Is this the same as one that we used before? So off the bat, off the bat, the answer is no. Why? Because the other button that I have up here, I was using it. If I'm using it, it's a kli, it's a vessel. You always have to remember, is this a kli or is this not a kli? A kli means a vessel, something that is usable, as opposed to the sand or to the rock, etc. However, the button that was inside, it never really had any use. If I go to my closet now and there are buttons in it, my sewing kit, those buttons are muktzeh because I have no functionality in which I could ever use that button on a Shabbat. Once that is on that level, it's called muktzeh mechamat gufo. There's no way. So now we have to ask ourselves, is the buttons on our clothing like the button in the closet, or is it a kli? So the one that is sewn and I actually use it, this is considered a kli. It's useful. However, the one that's inside the suit, just in case you ever drop a button and you'll have a spare, if that one fell off, that would be muktzeh mechamat gufo, and you would not be allowed to pick that one. All right. Another issue in regards to, well, you could call it muktzeh because it's garbage, but it could also, some could say it's the topic of sifting. Sometimes in our sink, there's something called a meshulash. I don't know how common it is in the States, but in Israel, it's pretty common. And whenever you want to throw all the plates with all the garbage into the sink and you're stacking, so instead of emptying out every plate into the garbage, you have like a triangle metal thing that's kind of floating above the sink. And you throw the garbage into that, and then you put the plate in the sink so that the water can go down. So, but what happens? That has holes. So if there are liquids or water goes into that, it sifts away and goes into the drain, and all the garbage stays in that triangle. So the Yalkut Yosef calls that the mishulash. That's what people call it. So am I allowed to throw something into that on Shabbat? Why would I think not? Because it's the action of sifting. You're not allowed to do borer. You're not allowed to remove good from bad, right? Unless it's for food. We're going to get to the halachot of borer. It's coming soon, Bezrat Hashem. I'm already preparing those shiurim. Probably one of the most complicated topics in Hilchot Shabbat, but fundamental and very, very important and useful once you learn the halachot to know what to do. You're sitting with a plate and you have a salad with onions. You don't like the onions. Am I allowed to take the onions out of the salad, or is that considered borer, sifting? We'll learn all these halachot, Bezrat Hashem. You have a mix of rice with beans, and the kid doesn't want beans, so he's pulling out the beans. Is it a problem? Is there a right way to do it? We'll see, Bezrat Hashem. But in regards to this triangle, once I throw the garbage in there, I'm doing an action of sifting because the water is going to go down where I want it to go, into the drain, and the garbage will stay in the triangle. What is the answer? Is it allowed or not allowed? Guys, there's a logical answer. I want to hear if someone wants to try. Okay. When are we not allowed to sift? When we are sifting good from bad or bad from good. That's considered an action of sifting. But over here, they're both garbage. I don't have any need in what's staying in the triangle. That's going into the garbage. And what's going to float out is also going to the garbage. So because of that, it's not really considered like I sifted. Also, you could say that, it's kind of being done on its own. I'm not sifting, I'm just putting it there. But that's not the main thing that is brought. What's brought down is really, there's no borer, sifting, when you're sifting between garbage and garbage. And therefore, you could use that thing on Shabbat. All right? The next topic he brings here, we spoke about it. He says a stone is muktzeh.
Steve, sorry.
Yes, b'chavod.
Is there sifting between good and good?
That's a very nice question. So the answer is, if they're both good, then why are you sifting? Obviously, even though it's edible, but you don't want it right now. So we'll get to these halachot. But if, for example, you have apple, sifting is more with small items. If they're big,
like a tomato in a salad, if you don't like tomatoes, can you put it away?
So tomato, even though it's edible and it's not garbage, but I don't want the tomato. So if I'm taking out the tomato, it will be considered asur, forbidden.
No, but what if you're just separating your food because you want to eat one thing first, then another thing second, so you're separating it.
Okay, so that won't be, I guess, garbage. Plus, if there's something called in halachot of borer, derech achila, the way of eating. For example, you're not allowed to, if I have on my plate bones and skin, and on the side I have the meat, I'm not allowed to take my plate to the garbage and empty out the bones. Why? Because I'm making a borer, I'm sifting the garbage out of my plate on Shabbat. But if they're attached, and now I want to separate them so that I can eat, so it's derech achila, it's the way of eating, and since it's done right away, then it's mutar. So I would say kind of similar to what you're seeing right now. If you have tomatoes and you want to kind of separate them, so the halachot haborer are very complicated, but I'll give a few examples to what we can use over here. There's an opinion that says that in your own plate, the halachot of borer don't exist. We don't say that that's the halacha, but we use it. A lot of the times in borer, we have many different opinions, and we use a couple of them, even though halacha is not like them, so that we will be able to do the action that we want to do. That's the shita of Rav Ovadia. It's called shitat tzirufim. He attaches two opinions that maybe necessarily halacha is not like them, but if halacha is like this, good. And even if it's not like this, maybe it's like that. Once you attach a few. So one opinion says, maybe in your plate, Rav Abulafi says that there's even no borer. The borer is only when you do it in a central plate. And if it's in your plate, it's the way of eating, it's okay. But there's a loophole that you could always use. If you want to take out the tomatoes, you can take out the tomatoes with something else. For example, a little bit of cucumber, a little bit of lettuce. Borer is only when you pull that one specifically out, but if you pulled it with something else, even a little bit, then it's allowed. So that's a good trick. If you want to, the kids don't like rice with the beans, you take out the beans, but take a little bit rice once you take out the beans, and you're covered as well, right? But yes, theoretically, there is borer tov mitov. But if you're saying it's the way of your eating and you're separating it in order to eat right away, then there are leniencies for that as well, right? So we can find loopholes, but the more we want to be strict, we can use more shitot to help us. Say, no, I don't need to take a little bit of the other material because I'm leaning on a Rav Abulafi that says that in my plate there's no borer. Okay, well, why not? If you can take a little bit of that, join another opinion, it'll be more safe. When you learn the halachot, you see there are many different things like this that you could do to put yourself more in comfort. However, once you have one or even two of them, especially if it's a borer midirabanan and not deoraita, we'll get there. It's complicated a little bit, but I hope I gave by the idea. Okay, so let me remind you the type of muktzeh that we were dealing with right now. We were learning on muktzeh mechamat gufo, an item that is not a kli, it's not a vessel, and it's not food. The example of a rock or a button inside the closet, right? We have no use in that button. It's not considered a kli. You can't really do anything with it, or at least it wasn't a kli before Shabbat. Now we're going to talk about kli shemelechto leisur. It is a kli. It isn't a vessel, like a driller, like a hammer, like a remote of a TV, stuff like that, all right? All these things are kli. They have use for them, but they are muktzeh, right? So what does he say about this? An item that you're used to using it for something that on Shabbat would be forbidden. If we're talking about a remote control, you're used to using it for electricity, that's forbidden. A hammer, you're used to building with it. You're not allowed to build on Shabbat, so it's going to be muktzeh. Same thing with the drill, okay? So those items, as we mentioned, I am allowed to move if it's in my seat or if I'm using it in a way that for now would be allowed. Cracking the nuts or any other example that you want to think, right? But what about ha'arama? Ha'arama is kind of finding a loophole. Let me make a trick. I'll explain myself. I want to move my driller right now, not because I needed space, and not because I'm going to use it in a way that's allowed, because there's no way to use it allowed on Shabbat, unless you take it and start cracking nuts with it. But generally, so lichora, supposedly I'm not be able to move it. Why do I even want to move it? The answer is no, it's in the sun. And I'm scared that now in the sun, it's going to get ruined. Or I left it outside, and I'm scared it's going to be stolen during Shabbat. So what do I do? So what you can do is you could do ha'arama, a loophole. You could come and say, listen, I want to sit where this driller is right now. I exactly want this spot. So whenever it's in my seat, I could lift it, and then I could sit there. And once I sat there, as long as the muktzeh is still in my hand, we mentioned this before, if it was picked up in a way that is mutar, that is allowed, then I can continue and put it wherever I want, even in the closet where it belongs. I don't have to just throw it right away. Once it was in my hand in an allowed way, I can continue. So this is called ha'arama. Ha'arama is like the trick, to find a loophole. It's a kosher loophole. All right. What about a needle or a safety pin? Am I allowed to touch those on Shabbat? What do you say? So I'm going to surprise you. But if someone, let's say, a girl had a skirt or pants, whatever, that had a little tear, and they want to be able to use it on Shabbat, so they take the safety pin and they put it in both sides that got torn, so now it's attached again together. I would think there's so many problems with that. You're fixing a clothing item on Shabbat, you're sewing, you're knitting, whatever you want to call it. But the answer is, since this is not really the way you are going to leave your pants forever, it's a temporary fix, then that is allowed. And since it's allowed, then you can pick up that needle or you could pick up that safety pin in order to do that item that would be allowed. But if you say, no, you know what, I like this safety pin, I want to leave it there forever, this is how I'm going to wear my pants forever, that's already not temporary, that would be forbidden. So you have to understand the logic behind it. Once it's a temporary fix, it's not a real fix, and then you could just put it there so that you'll be able to wear that on Shabbat. What about a Swiss Army, we call it in Hebrew a olar, you know those things, what are they called? Swiss Army knife that has also scissors and has like a bunch of stuff inside. You know what I'm talking about? A lot of soldiers in Israel have that. So some of those things are muktzeh, like the scissors, but some are allowed, like the knife, right? So if I want to lift that thing up in order to use the knife that is within it, I am allowed to. Why? Because even though I'm moving more muktzeh on the way, let's say it's a multi-item that has muktzeh and has non-muktzeh, I'm using the thing that is allowed. Since I'm using the thing that is allowed, I have to move the other things on the way. That would be okay. Just don't open the scissor or don't open, I don't know if anyone could help me. What is that thing called? The Swiss Army kit that has all those.
Swiss Army knife. Swiss Army knife.
But it's not just a knife, right? It has all those other things in it.
It's called a Swiss Army knife, but it has all those other
Okay,
things.
okay, I wasn't sure. Okay, so that Swiss Army knife would be not muktzeh if you want to use it for the thing that is allowed, for example, the knife to cut your tomato. Another case, I have a fan that is attached to the electricity, and I'm hot, and the fan is always going to the other side. I want to move the fan so that it goes to me, but it's attached to electricity. Muktzeh or not muktzeh? What do you say?
I would say it is. Because
I
it's
want you
still
to apply the logic that we just learned. What type of muktzeh? You always have to ask yourself, is this considered a vessel or is it not a vessel? It's a kli, it's a vessel, right? It's not sand, it's not a rock, it's something that's vessel. Only it's a vessel that is used for something that's asur on Shabbat. So it's a muktzeh under the category of kli, a vessel, shemelechto leisur, that the purpose of it is something that is asur on Shabbat. When it comes to those type of muktzeh, when am I allowed to move it? For one out of two reasons. One, I want the place that it's in my seat, I can move it to sit there. Or two, I want to move it for its own purpose, like the example we gave with the hammer. I'm allowed to move it to crack open nuts on Shabbat. But the hammer is used for building. Yeah, but I'm using it for the shimush mutar, for something that is allowed. The fan blowing air on me is something that is allowed. I can't touch the electricity, I can't play with the numbers. But the fact that it's blowing air, that's the shimush mutar. So says the Yalkut Yosef, if I want to direct it, I'm moving this muktzeh, but I'm moving it letzorech gufo, for its purpose. It's one out of the two ways that I'm allowed to move that type of muktzeh, either because it's in my seat, or because I want it in a kosher way. This is the example where I want it in a kosher way. I want the fan to be on my face, so you can direct it in the area that is convenient to you. I've done this before next to people, and people on Shabbat lose their mind. What? How is he moving this? It's attached to electricity. Baruch Hashem, you learn the halakhot, you know what is allowed, what is not allowed. All right. What about weights on Shabbat? So we spoke about working out and lifting weights. So generally, we are not allowed to work out on Shabbat. As we mentioned, besides the spirit of Shabbat, we're not talking about the spirit of Shabbat, but we mentioned that the way of sweating is the way of refuah, of healing. That's how they used to heal themselves. And since working out generally, the purpose of it is to make you sweat so that you heal yourself and get better, then the weights as well would be forbidden. But Rav Yitzchak Yosef discusses that maybe the way that people work out today in the gym is not for sick people. Back in the day, who would they make him sweat? Someone had a cold, had a fever, whatever it is. They would make him run so he would sweat it out, and that was refuah. And the reason why that's forbidden is because if you heal yourself this way, then maybe you'll come to also chop off leaves from your garden and create a potion of refuah. That's the Gzirav Chachamim. Since you may do that, we forbid you to sweat. But says Yalkut Yosef, maybe today going to the gym is not for sick people. It's derech habriim. It's something that perfectly healthy people do, which is true. What, everybody that goes to the gym is because he wants to sweat? No, I want to build muscle. It's derech habriim. The example that he gives is like vitamins. Vitamins, I'm allowed to take them on Shabbat. Medicine, I can't just take any medicine I want on Shabbat. There are restrictions. When we get to the halakhot, Bezrat Hashem, hopefully we'll learn them. But generally, antibiotics, you can only start taking them on Shabbat if you already started before Shabbat, or if if somebody is sick in a way that he has to lay down, when he's really not feeling good. But if he's okay and he could wait a few hours, then he's not really supposed to take the medicine on Shabbat. But the same idea that we mentioned before, Shema Yavo, maybe he'll come and now take a potion and make. However, vitamins are allowed on Shabbat because they're not considered refuah. They're not there to heal you. They're derech habriim. Healthy, perfectly healthy people take vitamins. Why do they take them? To prevent something bad from happening. If it's to prevent, it's okay. So for this he conducts, it may be same thing will be with weights. But Rav Ovadia says, no. His opinion, Rav Yitzchak Yosef brings his father's opinion. He says, but my father said asur, so I'm not going to contradict my father, but he left you room to think. Now, if I'm thinking out loud with you, why, if he at the end is going to say that his father's opinion, that it's asur, then why did he just bring this? Why did he say, some may say that today it's derech habriim, it's a healthy thing, not only sick people do it, sweating is okay. I think he brings it because even though he doesn't approve of it, But in certain scenarios where the Isu is more light and you know that there is an opinion that maybe you can rely on. He doesn't hold by it, but this opinion may be used for a different case, so he shares it with us. Okay, another case. I have now, Baruch Hashem, it's lychee season. Those of you that haven't been to my house yet, please, next time you come to Israel, come visit me. Ra'anana Ira Kodesh. I have a lychee tree. Now is the time that the lychees are at their peak. Baruch Hashem, beautiful lychees. What happens on Shabbat when I come back from shul in the morning and I see a lychee on the floor? Am I allowed to eat that lychee or not? Yes, no, and why? I want reasoning.
It depends. You don't know when it fell. If you knew it fell before, then
Yes,
sure.
okay, no, you're right. But let's assume that the floor was clean before and it fell on Shabbat.
So then no.
Okay, that's the answer. But why?
Because it was attached to the tree when Shabbat started.
And therefore, it was Muktzeh.
was-
If it wasn't allowed before Shabbat, meaning when it was off the tree, then now that it fell off the tree, it has a din of nolad. It's something that was created during Shabbat. Nolad is Muktzeh b'Shabbat. You're not allowed to enjoy that. I have a vase of flowers in the middle of the Shabbat table, but now I want to bring the food and the desserts, and I want to pick up the vase with the water and the flowers and put it somewhere else. But what is my concern? That when I lift this, I'm going to move the level of the height of the water. It's going to go a little bit up, a little bit down. And maybe by doing this, I'm giving life and I'm watering those flowers on Shabbat. Would that be allowed, or do I have to fear that maybe I'm watering the flowers on Shabbat?
I would say it's the same rule as the fan that we spoke about. Like if it's on a chair that you need to move, you could do it.
First of all, beautiful. You're saying it's not Muktzeh because I need the space. I wasn't talking about Muktzeh. I hear what you're saying. I'm talking about something else. I'm talking about the issue of watering plants on Shabbat. I'm doing that, right?
I'm guessing no.
But what?
I'm guessing the answer is no then if you're technically
No.
watering
But
plants.
even though I'm watering the plants on Shabbat, but this is called talush, says the Rabbi Ovadia. It's already disconnected from the ground. This is not gonna grow roots now and start a new tree. It's done. The flower, once you took it off, it's done. It's dying already. It's in the process of dying. The water may be delaying the death, but you're obviously not making and creating and planting right now. And therefore, he says you are allowed to move it because it's only made for beauty, and there's no really concern that you're going to do the planting because it's talush, because it's disconnected from the ground.
Dave, can you pour water? I think I heard a speech at synagogue one time. If you're walking and you're empty out a water bottle on the grass that you're holding, is on Shabbat, is that really forbidden to do? I heard it is forbidden because you might be planting or watering or.
Generally, of course, anytime you spill water. So some people discuss about little kids that have to go to the bathroom. What do you do with them? Are they allowed to? But some say no, since that doesn't necessarily help the tree to grow, that is lighter. But with water, yeah, you need to be careful. You shouldn't do it likatchila, meaning you shouldn't obviously pour any water on the grass because you're reviving it, and that is attached to the ground, right? There's discussion what happens on Chag HaSukkot when you don't want to go all the way up, so you want to do Netilat Yadayim outside, and some of the water is going to fall. So they say if you're doing it on the concrete and then the water slowly goes down and touches, okay, it wasn't done in a direct way, and really it's not even your grass. You don't even care for the grass, so there are ways to be lenient. But generally, yeah, you have a cup of water, don't go pour it on the grass on Shabbat. You're watering the plants, and that since that's attached to the ground, that is a sul. You're all right. If we spoke about flowers, now Rav Ovadia, or Rav Yitzchak Yosef actually, he talks about flowers that are attached, right? Has a beautiful smell. You want to come and smell it, but it's attached. So is that a problem to smell it on Shabbat? What would be the fear? So the fear would be that since you're going to enjoy the smell so much, you might come to pull out the flower. So do we have to fear for this? Says Rav Yitzchak Yosef, you don't have to fear. Just be careful and be aware not to pull it off, but you would be allowed to smell. So generally, he says if something is made, let's say for eating, right? Let's say a lemon, right? Then don't take that and smell it on Shabbat while it's still attached. Because since it's meant for eating, there is a fear that you may come and take it off and eat it. But if it's just meant for smell, like the flowers, then we really don't have the fear that you may pull it off. Then we allow you to come close and smell it even though it's attached. But don't go smelling lemons on a lemon tree. That's the
What if they're
distinction.
not ripe yet?
So you're saying maybe since they're not ripe, there's no fear that you'll pull them off the tree?
Right.
Interesting chiluk. I haven't heard that chiluk before. I haven't heard that chiluk.
Okay.
Good question. Hazak Baruch. Okay. Let's dive into something called basis ladavar asur. We're learning different types of muktzes. We learned muktzeh mechamat gufo. Remember, it's important to remember what type of muktzeh you're dealing with so you know what restrictions you have on it. We touched muktzeh mechamat gufo, which is like the rock. And that's more strict. I can't move it for my seat or for it. But klishe melachto leisur, like the drill or like the hammer, I'm allowed to move it if I want the seat or it's on my bed, etc. Now we're going to touch something called basis ladavar asur. When something is a base to something. A good example to that is like a drawer, all right? And I put in that drawer on Shabbat, let's say, I don't know, something that's very important to me, like the knife of a mohel, all right? The knife of a mohel is muktzeh mechamat chesron kis. We learned about that. It's muktzeh because it's very valuable. You're not going to let a little child play with it, and it's also something that is forbidden to use on Shabbat. It's klishe melachto l'asur, unless of course there's the mitzvah. So I put that item, which is a very strong muktzeh, into the drawer, all right? And now, am I allowed to open that drawer on Shabbat? So the answer is, since I put it there intentionally, I won't be allowed to open that drawer on Shabbat. If right before Shabbat I was in a rush, I just threw stuff into the drawer and it's over there, then you could say, you know what? I didn't mean to put it there. But if I decided, oh, let me put this knife over here in this drawer, you made the whole drawer a basis, a base, ladavar asur, something that is muktzeh, and then the whole drawer cannot be moved on Shabbat. By the way, same thing with your bed. Before Shabbat, you said, I want to leave my special sakin of the Brit Milah on this bed. I want to put it over here. Now you made the whole bed a basis ladavar asur, and you can't move it. Not so simple. So we don't have so many things that are muktzeh mechamat chesron kis. We spoke about it. It has to be klishe melachto leisur, like a muktzeh. First of all, it has to be a muktzeh, and above that, it has to be something that is very valuable to you. Examples that we brought was the knife of the mohel, or the knife of the shochet, that they're very careful with that, or maybe a very expensive camera that a photographer has. It's not so common, but if you did that, then make sure not to choose to put it somewhere, because once you put it somewhere, whatever is underneath it cannot be moved. All right, we have time for one more.
But Ziv, sorry, with that logic, let's say you didn't put it somewhere intentionally, and then, or your wife put it somewhere, and then you open the drawer. You didn't know it's in there. You open the drawer, you see it's there. There's no problem closing the drawer then.
No. So if it wasn't put there with intention, then the drawer doesn't become muktzeh, because it wasn't like decided for there. It happened to be there. Then you have the ways to move it around. I'm reminding you that when you're opening a drawer, you're not even really touching the muktzeh. You're moving something that is moving something. It's not even a direct contact. Don't lift it, but since you're opening a drawer, that would be okay. Okay, you know what? Let's stand over here, and Bezat Hashem, we'll see you. I want to say next week, but Bezat Hashem, I'll be traveling next week. The week after that, is it Tisha B'Av? Is Tisha B'Av Tuesday night or Wednesday night? Anybody have it beforehand, the calendar? If it's not Tisha B'Av, we'll have it next week. If not, then I guess it's going to be pushed off one more. And
Erev Tisha B'Av on the 22nd, which is a Wednesday, so we could do the class on Wednesday.
So Wednesday, potentially, if we're able, we'll do the class, Bezat Hashem. And hopefully I'll be in New York, so I'll see you guys by then, Bezat Hashem. All right, it's cool to meet you guys.